What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Sunday League Screamers podcast. I'm your host of today's show, Steve McCutcheon, along with my two co-hosts, Vito Anazelli and Michael Nolan. We have another great show for you, but before that, please take a moment, hit the bell, subscribe to us on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, and wherever else you find your podcast. Also, give us a follow on Twitter at the SL Screamers_pod. Today, we're starting back up our Hooligan half hour, where we interview fans of the Premier League clubs from this side of the Atlantic. Joining us today is a close friend of the show, back for his second time, Jacob Holton of the Cincinnati Toffees.
Welcome back.
Woo! Yeah. Let's go.
That's in.
We're back, baby.
That's right.
Real quick, Jake, just if you want to just give everyone a rundown, any new listeners on the show, where you're from, who you are, how you started joining, or how you started supporting Everton.
Right. So obviously they talked about it. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. I have been supporting Everton since the 2014-2015 Premier League season. I got into the Premier League after the 2014 World Cup, where I was like, damn, soccer's really cool. So I kind of want to keep watching this. And a buddy of mine's like, all right, just sit down, watch the Premier League, pick a team, and just go with that team forever. And I'm like, sounds like an easy plan to me. So I started watching.
Are you still happy with that decision?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I would never change it. So, I watched about a quarter of the first season, and I'm like, I'm between Arsenal and Everton, and I'm like, well, I'm not really feeling anything with Arsenal, so like, Everton it is, and we just went from there, and it has been a ride. It has been a ride.
Been a Toffee ever since.
What was it that drew you in over Everton from Arsenal?
It's really funny because like there wasn't really ever anything that was like, man, Everton's really drawing me in, but it's like the thing with Everton supporters is it's always spouted out. Like as an Everton supporter, you're chosen by the club. You don't choose the club. Like you're born, not manufactured. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like I've been told that my whole life by Scousers and all these other people, and it's just like it feels good. Like so, I think it's it's silly to say, but like I think the soccer gods are just kind of like, all right, well, you're one of them. So
written in stone.
I like it. Let's kick it off real quick. We're going to backtrack just a little bit for Everton. Obviously last season, absolute whirlwind. You probably had 14 different heart attacks. Maybe you had cardiac arrest. I don't know what the case was, but what do you think happened? What went wrong? Because truthfully, we heading into last year, we kind of thought Everton might have like a little bit of a down year, not like a relegation candidate kind of year. But give us your take. What happened?
Well, first off, they hired Rafa Benitez after Carlo Ancelotti left for Real Madrid. That was, I mean, you knew it was going to be bad as soon as that happened. I mean, the fans were already against him as soon as he was hired. So from the jump, there's a toxic element in the fan base.
Was it that bad? Like on Twitter, where fans were
man,
that upset
dude.
and whatnot?
So yeah, so there were people like protesting, putting bed sheets sprayed with like we don't want Rafa and all this other stuff, like outside of Goodison Park, like a week before he's hired. And I think the worst part was like the whole manager search was really tumultuous. Like we were just being linked with terrible manager after terrible manager, and it's like there were a couple good ones in there, like Chris Galtier, who's now in charge of PSG.
Yep.
Like he was linked with Everton, and we were like, well, we should have gotten him. So and not only that, I think the other thing that really, and I think this is pretty well known, is like financial fair play really caught up to Everton last summer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's famous. We only brought in Damari Gray for a little under £1.5 million, and we brought in Andros Townsend on a free, and I think that was it last summer. So I mean, like squad depth wise, it was pretty rough, and we had some injuries at the beginning of the season. Dominic Calvert-Lewin missed basically the whole season. Richarlison missed a big chunk of the season in the middle of the season. Abdoulaye Doucouré was in and out of the lineup. Alan missed some games. We had, just injuries all over the place. Damari Gray started hot, but he cooled off. So, I mean, Richarlison really was the only thing that kind of dragged us across the line by the end. So, But man, I never want to be in that situation again. But those last like 5 matches, it's some of the best stuff I've ever felt in my life. It's like stressful, yes. Like every match you're on pins and needles because you feel like one goal and you're just like, oh my god, we went down, we're gonna lose, and now we're gonna go down. Like after we lost to Burnley, that
was huge. That swung it
That
for
was
a while.
that was a tough one.
everyone that I knew was like, all right, well, we've kind of accepted it. We're going down. Like
I was gonna say, at what point were you like really honing in on like, oh shit, this is happening?
I think that was it. Yeah, I think that's when it got real for a lot of people. When we lost 3-2 at Burnley, I think that's when it got real for a lot of people, and a lot of people got really scared. And it's really funny, not funny, but like to me, watching people from Liverpool talk about how it was affecting their lives. Like people weren't sleeping, people were eating poorly, like everyone was like just more stressed out than I've ever seen anybody about anything in my life. It was crazy.
That just sounds like another day in England. I'm going to be honest with you.
And then, but then we just pull it together. The Newcastle match, oh my God. The scenes when Alex Iwobi scores in the 99th minute because some crazy person straps himself to a goalpost to protest oil. I mean, it's the most bizarre thing I've ever seen, but it gave me such a feeling. Like I remember, I think there were a couple of times where we won towards the end of the season where you just cried a little bit because you're like, okay, we're another step closer. We just got to get a little bit more. And that Alex Iwobi goal was a moment when we beat Leicester away, and the away fans were in the stands screaming and yelling, singing for 30 minutes after the match is over. That was really cool. And then, it culminates with Crystal Palace at home. And it's just, I will never forget Crystal Palace at home. I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that feeling. I'll never forget the scenes. Like still to this day, like when I think about it, when I talk about it, I get kind of emotional because it's just like it was the culmination of watching these fans just come together and drag this team across the finish line, and it was incredible.
What do you think was the catalyst for what put Everton into that hole initially, or what do most fans believe it might be?
I think it varies from fan to fan. I don't think there was ever really like a consensus like, oh, well, it was this or it was that. Some fans will blame the hiring of Rafa Benitez was the thing that really honestly kicked it off. Some people will say like, oh, well, it's the board's fault for all their reckless spending over the years and not having any financial fair play to, not having any financials to like bring reinforcements in. Some people will blame the injuries. It varies. For me, I think it was just kind of a perfect storm. I think not having money in the summer really hurt us because we couldn't reinforce, and the guys we brought in, they were good, and they contributed, and they were really good players for most of the season. But I mean, they weren't ever going to be enough to like really kick us off and have a great season. I thought Rafa Benitez was wrong, and I think they kept him around way longer than they should have. So that was one. And then and when they sacked him and they brought Lampard in with like 48 hours left in the January transfer window to like, all right, guy, figure it out. Like, and it's just like, okay, well, so that was bad. And injuries, man, just not having a striker for the entire season basically there's not a lot of teams that's going to win a lot of matches if you don't have a striker. So I personally think it was a perfect storm, but like fan wise, I don't think you're going to get a consensus.
What did you think of the Lampard appointment when it came through? Because it was kind of one of the only options left on the table that late in the January transfer window. And it was kind of a hit or miss with a lot of people when we talked about it.
It was him and who was the other guy? Oh man, it was between him and some guy that nobody wanted. So we were all like, all right, well, bring Lampard in, I guess. And I think it was met with skepticism. Lampard has had a couple jobs. He worked at Derby where he was okay, almost got them up. I think once Maybe he was.
Yeah,
in
they think they're in the
playoff.
playoff final actually.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
almost brought Darby up, didn't do it. I thought it was harsh for Chelsea to sack him, because he was managing when the transfer ban was in, and he did great. I thought like he had to stick with the players he had, and he was I mean, you guys are Chelsea supporters, right? Like I would like, he got him in the top 4, didn't he?
Got us top 4, especially with the transfer ban, and then it seemed to unravel a little bit. I don't know if me and Vito talk about this all the time. We never felt like he was really a Premier League manager yet, and he kind of skipped some steps. But
Right.
emotionally, it hurt to see him go.
Yeah.
Obviously, just being a club legend and everything like that. And then you go in the Champions League with Tuchel and be like, well, maybe he was actually the issue. And it's a really weird thing to look back upon. So I wish they gave him more time, just personally, because I thought he probably could have figured it out. But just even watching him now, I don't know. I don't know if he's like. What do you think of him? Out of curiosity, over at Everton.
The entire fan base will go to war for that guy. The entire fan base will go to war for that guy. I think, God, I honestly feel sorry for him because he understands. Since day one, I think he's kind of understood what it means to be the Everton manager. Like he understands the fans, he understands what we want to see, and he understands what he has to do to like get the fans behind him. He just gets it. And tactically he's not all there sometimes. Sometimes he gets it wrong, and sometimes his substitutions like really are head scratchers, but then other times he's just brilliant with his substitutions. And so he is still learning. It kind of sucks that he's learning on the job at Everton. But it's also, I think it's also a good situation for him to learn in, because right now there's not really a whole lot of pressure on him. All he has to do is keep us afloat until we get into our new stadium.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and I think he's done a good job with the squad he has. He's kind of hamstrung. He's having to play 5 at the back, and he doesn't really have a choice. And we're still kind of flirting with financial fair play. Like we've made some signings this summer. It's been a lot better. Like Amadou Onana, we were able to spend money on him, and that was great. And he's going to be a great player.
Mhm.
And if we sell Anthony Gordon for 60 million quid,
Chelsea heard it's up to like 80 now, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm shocked they've denied that though. That seems like
I don't understand.
He scored like 4 Premier League goals and like 4 deflections. Like it's like, bro, take the money.
I mean,
we are so angry.
From what I was seeing, it was a matter of actually back to Frank Lampard realizing he's like, I don't have a replacement. Calvert-Lewin's gone for foreseeable future, and now without Richarlison. So at least that's what I'm seeing online.
The funny thing is, like, I think if you sold Anthony Gordon for whatever it is, whatever absurd fee you're going to get for him, you can go out and get players like you. We've been linked with some good players who are better than Anthony Gordon. So like, I don't know, like, but Frank Lampard, I'm all in on Frank. I love him. I think he's going to figure it out. And we need some stability at the manager position. Since I've been a supporter, I've never had a manager last more than a year and a half. So
no shit, really.
Yeah, it's been rough. So I want to see him succeed, and it's gonna break my heart if he gets sacked because of the failure of the board again. That would really bum me out.
Would you take, this is totally hypothetical, a player coach scenario? Lampard puts the boots on, goes out for Everton.
Old time sake right there.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. That might be a bit too far. But, maybe 5 years ago, you tell me that, and I'd be like, yeah, sure. Well, let's do it.
A little late for that.
So what? I know you mentioned the financial fair play before. Obviously, like them dealing with it last year. They brought in a few signings so far. But you guys been linked. I saw your thread earlier. I knew that a little bit beforehand. I didn't know to the extent of what like you posted.
It's crazy.
But there's not like get some people in, bro. Like that is nuts.
Yeah, it's so for those who don't know, I've been keeping track. It was kind of started out as a gag. I'm in a group chat of Ohio Toffees. Shout out to the group chat, and they're like, somebody keep track of all the summer transfer like rumors, all the links, like link the week, like no matter what the link is, like the weakest link possible. I'm like, all right, it's going on the list. So the last I checked before I left work today, I think we're up to 121 players linked through the summer, and it's absurd. There have been some really crazy names on that list, like Gavi was one from Barcelona. Like, why? Why? What are we talking about here? So I don't know. Like, we're very frustrated, and I'm starting to get worried. The transfer window closes next Wednesday.
Basically a week from today, I think, right?
Next less than that. It's like 6 days.
Yesterday?
Yeah, it's a week from today. We're recording on a Thursday. So.
Yeah. So I'm worried. I think we have to sell Anthony Gordon, and we have to sell him right now. Like,
he is very talented, but yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's a wing back yet to be converted into a wing back.
Yeah. He doesn't have the goals. I think you're right. I think wing back would be a better position for him because he's got the energy to kind of run up and down. He would have to get better at staying in position and like actually defending, but I think he could. But yeah, I think you have to sell him. You have to sell him now. I don't care if Frank Lampard wants him around. I don't care if Bill Kenwright's like, well, I don't want to let him. I don't care. Like we need players, and we need players who can score goals. We don't have any goals in this squad right now. Until Dominic Calvert-Lewin comes back, there's nobody who can score. Demarai Gray is pretty much it, and he ain't Richarlison. Like he'll score every 6 matches or whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? So sell him, get some goals in the squad. It looks like we might sign Neil Maupay, which Maupay, really?
that expression just summed that one up, though.
And we're heavily linked with a move for Ben Brereton Diaz from Blackburn Rovers. So
he's a good player.
He is a good player. I rate him very highly, and I would be very excited for him to come. But I think, man, we can do better than Neil Maupay. You have to do better than that.
So what about, curious to get your opinion, Jacob, on the people you brought in so far, because you've done a little bit of dumpster diving, and I love Burnley on the show personally. I was a big Dyche fan while he was there. You picked up Tarkowski, you picked up Dwight McNeil, 2 players from a Burnley squad that got relegated that in their own sense were some of the standout performers on that team. What are your thoughts on those 2 players? What are your thoughts on the other transfers that have been able to come through the door at Goodison?
I think it's been a decent window. Connor Cody and James Tarkowski has made our defense cohesive, which is great. Oh God, it was so bad last year, but now having those 2 in the middle, and Mason Holgate has really come on since those 2 guys have come in. He was very shoddy last year, hit or miss, and he's got kind of a hot head. I mean, he still does, but having James Tarkowski and Connor Cody next to him has made him into a really solid defender. We also brought in Ruben Vinagre for some depth behind Vitaly Mikalenko. I think that's fine. He'll do. He's a little bit more offensive than Vitaly is, which is great. For a late game sub if you need a goal still. The big ticket man so far this summer has been Amadou Onana. He is a stud midfielder. I mean, he played all 90 minutes the other night in the cup match. They were just chopping at his legs all night long. It was crazy. But he showed some real flashes. He hit 2 diagonal balls to either side of the pitch, and they were inch perfect, beautiful. And 90 minutes into the match, he made a run from the halfway line to deep into the opposing half, and was chopped down in a great area for a free kick. And I'm like, that's what you want to see. So he'll be a great addition to the midfield. But there's Dwight McNeil. Nah, not for me.
No.
I didn't rate him when he was at Burnley. He's started slow. I think maybe if we had a real striker, he'd be a little bit better, because he can deliver a good cross in. But he's not going to score goals. People are like, oh, well, maybe since he was in a bad Burnley side, the goals will come at Everton. But I'm like, it's not really a good Everton side either. So that argument doesn't track. So overall, I mean, if we get 2 strikers done, Maupay and Brereton Diaz are fine. They'll complement Calvert-Lewin enough when he comes back. It's really, we just need to bridge until he's back, and hopefully he can stay healthy once he is back. But we still need more. We need another midfielder. We need another winger. and then maybe we'll be okay, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, Jacob, it's interesting you said midfielder because a player Mike has a particular affinity to. Dele Alli sealed his loan for £8 million over to Besiktas, and talking about these incoming transfers that you're hoping to see, regardless of how it went for him, obviously at Spurs and then the beginning of his career at Everton. What was your take on him leaving? You think that was a little bit towards financial fair play? They needed the income, or would you have liked to see him stay and earn his spot back?
No, to be honest, it hasn't really worked like we wanted it to. I don't think for him, for the club, for nobody in particular, it hasn't really worked out. We were really hoping that he could come here. He could get his confidence back under Frank Lampard. I think also right now, the squad that Everton has, the system that Frank Lampard is playing in, Dele doesn't really fit in. There's not really a place for him because really you would have to play him in like the Anthony Gordon or Damari Gray type position. And it's just because you can't, because right now he's playing two in the midfield and it's Alex Iwobi and whoever is playing next to Alex Iwobi.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't jive. Like, I guess you could play him next to Alex Iwobi, but then defensively you're gonna be left out to dry, I think, a little bit. So it's something that needed to happen. I'm bummed out because we all wanted him to come here and really kick on like he was, and return to his star form that he had at Spurs. Because I mean, everyone remembers those couple years at Spurs, man. He looked like the next big midfielder. Like he looked like the next big thing. It was going to be him, Kane, and Son just ripping up the Premier League for a long time. And it just, I don't know, man. I hope that he can re-find himself in Turkey. Like maybe that's going to be less pressure on him. He's going to be out of the country. The eyes are going to be off him a little bit. So I hope he does well. But it just hasn't worked.
So if you had an ideal signing, then like someone that you personally want to see like brought in, do you have a name?
So it's looking like the João Pedro deal for Newcastle has kind of fallen apart since they brought in Isaac from Sociedad. I think João Pedro would be phenomenal in this side. He can play across the front three. He would be an excellent striker fill-in until Dominic Calvert-Lewin came back. And if you sold Anthony Gordon and brought in João Pedro is going to score more goals than Anthony Gordon, and he does basically the same thing. And you can stick him right in the same spot, and you can play either Dwight McNeil or Damari Gray on the other side, or flip-flop. He would give a lot of versatility. It would cost £30 million, which is not a small fee. But João Pedro, I think, is a guy right now where I'd be like, go get him.
Yeah, between him and Ismail Yassar, I think either one of those would be quite the pickup at this point.
Yeah,
I'm actually shocked Yassar hasn't even hasn't been transferred yet already. It's like shocking to me.
Yeah, I mean his deal with Villa fell through, and since then he hasn't been linked with anybody.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, I don't want to harp on that obviously because last year was a little tumultuous for the Everton supporters, we know, but looking forward to this year, obviously not the best to start so far, although you have put in some very strong performances, especially in that opening match against Chelsea, where, in my opinion, even as a Chelsea supporter, I thought Everton ran the show for the most part. What's your hopes this season, and where do you see the club finishing, and both where you think they're going to be and where you think a target should be for Frank Lampard?
Oh, I don't think the target should be set very high at all. Like just finish above 15th, 14th, 13th, right in that area.
Just some breathing room.
Yeah, that's about all we need. And I predicted that they would finish in 14th. There is still a lot of work to be done if we're going to get to that point, because if we don't bring in two strikers and a winger and maybe another midfielder, it's going to be a rough season again. But right now, it looks like we're going to get Neil Maupay. Looks like we might get Brereton Diaz. Sell Gordon, get a winger. We'll be all right. I think we'll be okay. Because, I wasn't impressed with Nottingham Forest. I've watched every Nottingham Forest match. I've not really been all that impressed with them. I think they should have gotten beat by 4 goals by West Ham. Everton should have beat them last week, and they would have beat them last week if we had a striker. Bournemouth. I don't even want to talk about Bournemouth. They're terrible. I mean, they beat Villa on the opening day, but like they're not.
It was a fluke.
We
That
talked about that last week.
that roster is so bad. Like it's laughable. I don't think Villa are very good. I think Leicester are in danger of going down this season, and I'm not even kidding. I'm not even kidding.
Steve said the same thing.
I think I
Insane.
picked them to go down or finish one place above the relegation zone in my prediction. They're in trouble. Brendan Rodgers is reeling. They're holding on to dear life for Wesley Fofana. They're holding on to dear life for the other guy, the midfielder.
Madison.
Tielemans and Madison.
Tielemans too, yeah.
So, oh God, and they haven't brought anybody in, and they're never linked with a single player.
Yeah,
lost Michael too.
They're in trouble. They're in big trouble. So I think there are teams worse than us, and really watching the league as a whole so far this year, I've not really been super impressed by a whole lot of teams. So
yeah,
I think once we get our business done, if we get our business done, I guess I should say, we'll be okay.
Honestly, I know you're not a fan of it, but I do think because I've ripped on Neil Maupay before, but I do think if you're able to bring in Neil Maupay to the club, he's a proven striker. He's also a shithouser, and he knows how to rile opponents up.
Yeah,
and he might miss once in every while, like a key opportunity and whatnot, but he knows in key moments when and how to find the back of the net. And from Everton's perspective, if you don't have those goal scorers in place, I mean, you never know when he could pop up at the very last minute in those match weeks in April or whenever, and be that that person that keeps Everton up realistically, or it gives you that breathing room towards that 15th or that 14th place, etc.
Not to mention,
What
if
was
you're
the
talking
price
about
tag for him? What's the supposed price tag for him?
I think. Oh my God, I think it's always like 20 million or something.
He's young too. Isn't he like 24, 25, something like that?
I think he's 20.
No, he's older than that now.
26, 27. I think.
Yeah.
So basically in his prime.
Yeah, he's in his prime. I mean, I don't know. We've had signings that I thought were going to hit, and they didn't, and we've had signings that I thought were going to bust, and they didn't. So, what do I know?
Well, you're taking him away from another candidate who realistically is probably shooting for the same finishing places. So it's kind of reminiscent of what Newcastle did last year. Who they pick up from Burnley? Chris Wood, yeah, for an absurd fee. Yeah. Just because fuck them, that's why.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
It's that oil money, baby.
Yeah,
that's what you guys need. You need an oil baron to come in.
The funny thing is we were like linked early in the summer. We were linked with like a takeover, and we were all pumped. We were all pumped about it. We're like, hell yeah, let's go.
Dude, the amount of money coming into the Premier League is just going to decimate every other league.
It's absurd.
Especially when the takeovers continue. Like, it's just going to keep going.
Yeah.
Super League is going to exist, and it's going to be called the Premier League.
Can they get relegated, though? Is it possible?
We'll see.
Yeah,
The founding 20 members?
So looking to youth, Jacob, in terms of Everton, their youth system, some of their youth products, who are some of the players that, as fans of the Premier League, we should be on the lookout for, players on loan, even potentially who aren't playing right now, but will have a lot of high praise, that are maybe worth a look at?
So one guy who just went on loan to Sunderland at the beginning of the season, Ellis Sims. He's a striker. He's already bagged 3 goals. He had a brace in his second game. He is like a similar body type to Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I don't think he's got this as good as a hold-up play, but as a pure like finisher, he's incredible. He knows how to score the goals, which is great.
I hope you also mean he won't get injured as much as Dominic with the same body type.
Oh God, please. He's much more of a brick house than Calvert-Lewin is, I think. Yeah. So Lewis Warrington is a midfielder who might go on loan, but he might not, depending on what we do in the transfer window. He's more of a box-to-box kind of midfielder. Everyone's very excited about Lewis Warrington. Let's see. We've got who's the other one? Lewis Dobbin is on loan. He is technically a striker, but I think he should be pushed out wide as a winger. He's a smaller guy. He's lightning quick. He's a good finisher. He delivers a good ball. But I just think size wise, I think he would be better as a winger. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good guys. And I think the problem we've had at Everton over the last like 5 years or whatever is we haven't done a good job of loaning guys out when they need to be loaned out to develop, and they're just playing under 23s, under 21s for too long. They get to the end of their contract and then they leave on a free to like League Two, and we're like, well, that's a waste of a talent. So there's a lot of guys coming through right now that a lot of people are really excited about. And it seems like we're learning now that like we're loaning people out when they need to go. So there's a lot to be excited about, potential revenue streams with these players, potential first team players. So, we're hyped up.
Nice. Do you think any of them break into the first team this year?
Lewis Warrington's got the best chance, I think. Because if there's a couple more injuries in the midfield, he'll probably slide right in. So, but other than that, I don't really see it. Yeah.
Gotcha. I mean, that's pretty much all we had, at least on our terms. But I do have one question I really want to ask you. I see the Cincinnati hoodie.
FC Cincinnati, baby, let's go.
From a United States men's national team perspective, Brandon Vasquez has obviously been murdering it in MLS this past season. Do you think he gets called into next camp and has a realistic shot of making Qatar, or not?
I think it's kind of absurd if he doesn't get called into the next camp. I mean, he is the hottest U.S. men's national team striker anywhere in the world at this moment. Like and right now he's got his complete game put together. He can score with either foot. He's great in the air. Like headers, incredible. Hold up play is phenomenal. I think with the guys who are in the squad right now for the U.S. men's national team, he would work really well. Qatar, I don't know. He would have to keep his form to the end of the season, but by the time he's done playing, the other domestic leagues are already they're gonna keep playing, and he's gonna be sitting down by that time. So probably not gonna see him in Qatar, which I think is a real bummer. Because I think he's earned it. I think right now he'd be a great guy to maybe bring off the bench and just kind of give a different dimension to the attack if they need a different kind of look. But then I don't see it. But I think he's nailed on to make the next camp for sure.
Yeah, I think timing really screwed him over. Just realistically, like if he was in any of the qualifiers, even like the last window in there, like the summer games we had in the Nations League, some stuff like that, I would say he has a pretty realistic chance of it. I think it's just unfortunately for him, like just too late.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, incredibly young, 19 goal contributions in 24 starts. I mean, he's just absolutely tearing it apart. And he's a big dude. I mean, 6'2", almost 200 pounds. He's a big guy. He's like very much in the vein of like Haji Wright and those guys. But you're right. If he doesn't make at least the camp, it'd be like, all right. Because it's not like anyone else can do it right now. So
dude, the number 9's have been showing up the last 2 weeks. They're
but in Europe, not in the national team shirt. That's what counts right now.
Fair enough. Very fair. Any predictions for the World Cup, man?
I think Brazil's gonna win it. I do. They haven't won for a long time. Their squad is in their prime. They've got obviously they've got loads of talent. A super deep roster, pretty much at every position. I think for the U.S. men's national team, make it the round of 16. I'm not sold. I'm not sold yet. They've got a lot of talent. They should make it past the round of 16 to the quarterfinals. I just don't see it. And obviously it depends on who they play, because if they play somebody that they can beat, they will beat them and they'll get to the quarterfinals. But
I've said this before, but hot take, I don't think they make it out of the group stage.
I could see that. I could see that, honestly.
I think Wales gets ahead of them.
Yep.
To be frank.
It's an incredibly tough group.
Yeah. You've got one easy match. One.
And even then, Iran won their domestic tournament this year, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, still, like you've got enough talent to beat Iran. Like you should be beating them. But the rest of those matches, who knows?
Gareth Bale has a very legit chance of just dropping his pants on us and then just seeing the Champions League bicycle or like all over him. Like,
he saves all of his moments, any juice he has left, just for Wales. He doesn't give a shit about anything else.
He's such an incredible national team player. It is absurd.
It's golfing or Wales. That's it. That's all.
Yes.
And then maybe darts. Is he in the darts too?
Now LAFC. That's
LAFC.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah. Fair.
Just as a reminder too for everyone listening, if the United States make it out of the bracket, there would play the runner-up and winner of Group A, which is either Qatar, Ecuador, or really the two heavy hitters, the Dutch and Senegal. So it's probably going to be the Dutch or Senegal, and Sadio Mane is going to fucking tear them apart.
Oh no! Oh, that would be so miserable for me. I would hate that so much.
Yeah. I can't wait for the World Cup.
Man, I love the Premier League so much that I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it. We'll see. It's going to be weird.
Having it in the winter sucks.
Yeah, but it's like 104 degrees there. So
would you take a Everton FA Cup win or this year, or a US, let's just say, make it to the round of 8?
Oh,
what I would choose.
See, I don't care. Everton FA Cup. Give me a trophy. Give me a trophy. I don't care.
I love it.
I am you have to understand that, like, I kind of get annoyed with the whole anytime an American does anything in football, everyone loses their minds. Yeah. I hate it. It drives me insane. I'm like, I don't care. Do they play for Everton? If the answer is no, I don't care.
Okay, who would you want from a U.S. perspective to play? If you could sign one U.S. player to Everton.
Weston McKennie.
Weston?
Yeah.
Weston McKennie.
That's a good pick.
He's got that dog in him, man.
He does. He does. And he would be incredible. He would be incredible in this squad. So.
You don't want any of the strikers?
Yeah.
No.
Josh Sargent's available.
So. Yeah. No. Yeah. I don't think Josh Sargent is quite cut out to be a Premier League striker, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Hilton the championship, though, so far.
Yeah. Tearing up.
So he follows Mitrovic's footsteps, scores 40-something goals, and then puts up 3 in the opening 3.
I wouldn't be mad, not at all. But before we head out here, Jacob, let's give everyone that's listening just where they can find you, all that kind of stuff on social. We'll also have it linked.
Right. Actually, I'm dumb and I don't know my Twitter handle off the top of my head. So just when you see the episode, just click on that link. You can find me if you want to follow me and watch me rant about Everton every Saturday at whatever time they're playing. They're going to be doing something dumb. I'm going to be angry about it. So
I can help you. It's at Jake Holton 12.
But he's got me covered.
And then it's the series. Well, it's not the Syracuse. It's Cincinnati Toffees at Cincinnati Toffees.
Yes. If you are ever in Cincinnati for a match week, no matter who you support, Dana Gardens is the place. Look it up. It's great. We serve breakfast. We got a great group of people. As long as you're not being a jerk,
sure,
we'll have your game on the TV. If you're a Liverpool supporter, I would suggest going to Rhinehouse instead. They'll serve you there. We probably won't serve you at Dana Gardens.
Maybe even another city at that point.
Yeah. I mean, look, man, I don't want to get into a pissing contest, but like the Cincinnati Toffees are way better than the Liverpool Cincinnati people. So
we got a grudge match coming up next episode, folks.
You actually be on Rough and Rowdy.
But yeah, you can, if you want to follow me on Instagram. I don't really post there a lot, but it's at Jake Holton. It's real simple. So
awesome. But guys, that'll do it for this episode of the Sunday League Screamers podcast. Like, comment, hit the bell, subscribe to us on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, and wherever else you find your podcast. Also give us a follow on Twitter at the SL Screamers_pod for daily tweets about the show, world football, United States men's national team, and the Premier League. I'm your host, Steve, with Mike, Vito, and our special guest, Jacob, signing off.